In this video, I will be covering issue 1 of Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone, set in the same continuity as the recent 2025 comic simply called Godzilla, both of which are part of the Kai-Sei trilogy of Godzilla comics. Unlike with Godzilla issue 1, where the prequel part of its story happens before the events of its first issue, the events of this story's prequel comic shown in the free comic book day issue actually occurs around the middle of the comic, so it's technically part of issue 1 instead of being a prelude to issue 1 like the other series was. But I'd still recommend checking out my reviews of those previous issues, just to get an idea of what the heck this whole new continuity of Godzilla is all about. Or if you're interested in checking out the other story that takes place in this same continuity. We start off with a flashback before the events where the Kai-Sei energy would first be discovered by humanity, unleashing a strange mysterious energy as well as a horde of new monsters, Godzilla included. This event would become known as G-Day. But on the day this happens, we see an office worker guy looking at a picture of his presumed wife when G-Day first occurs, and we see a giant monster eye pop up in front of the window of the building. I don't believe this is Godzilla, since we see what Godzilla looks like, and yeah, those eyes do not match up. On this day, Seattle, Washington, and the entire Pacific Northwest would become heavily irradiated, transformed into what would become known as the Dead Zone, sealed off from the rest of the world. The US government deemed the place to be uninhabitable, yet as we clearly see, there are people living in established society. Taking place in modern day, which should be 2025 given that's what was the stated year the main Godzilla comic was taking place, as noted in the end of the prequel issue, we see that the humans who are living in the Dead Zone have become highly mutated, barely looking human anymore due to the excess amounts of radiation. One of them claims to have seen Godzilla, hinting that he might actually have a nest somewhere inside the Dead Zone. If that's true, then I'm curious how he's getting in and out of the Dead Zone without causing a huge breach in whatever wall they're sealing the whole place up with. One of these guys even has a crude cybernetic arm, though it's clearly not perfect as it basically just seems to be a jumbled mess of cable wires. Not really out of place when you consider what kind of tech G-Force is packing in the main Godzilla comic. They then start gossiping about a mysterious half-man, half-kaiju hybrid, mainly due to the fact that, I guess unlike everyone else, this guy actually has an extra limb with a tail. This guy, known as the Wanderer, just happens to be here as they're talking about him, and he gets up to leave. Pulling out a picture, the same one we saw from the office guy earlier, confirms that these two were one and the same, which means that one of the side effects of his mutation is longer lifespan, since this guy would obviously have to be around 100 years old by now. I guess his car had seen better days because now it's officially broke down, and after putting the pick back in his pocket, he decides to go the rest of the way on foot. It's at this point that we get to the part of the issue that is used in the prequel comic, where we see him go through a hole in the fence into Sector 2, which is stated to have multiple kaiju ahead. I imagine this is important world-building lore for the Dead Zone, as it indicates that some of these sections might be more dangerous and hazardous than others to live in. Apparently a lot of people view this Wanderer as like some kind of messiah, but officially he's basically a bounty hunter who, when paid the right price, will actually take down some of the kaiju in the Dead Zone. We see him bring out retractable claws and get into a fight with some small kaiju, and in this shot, if you look closely, you can see his hands are noticeably bigger than they were before. The next we see of the guy, he's riding on top of the kaiju like a giant camp, just casually strolling through districts. We get a shot of one location, which definitely has a lot of people buzzing about, and then another location, which basically looks deserted with all these little fire pits or vents smoking up. He then sells the camel kaiju to guys who I do not believe are mutants and are either aliens or vampires. I mean, just look at them. We then see him walking out in the desert when some guys drive by, warning him that they've got a kaiju on their tail, but he dismisses their concerns, believing no giant kaiju would come out this far, though he is immediately proven wrong when he gets caught in the middle between a fight between two giant kaiju, much bigger than the camel one he fought earlier. And we'll give the artist credit, these are some pretty cool looking designs, even though they'll probably never get official names. The yellow tentacle one lifts the big purple one up and throws it into the ground, before collapsing itself. The monster's chest explodes open, and inside we see a girl unconscious, wrapped up in the kaiju's intestines. Lovely. We get a better look at the Wanderer's face as he carries the girl outside the kaiju's body, wondering if she's actually controlling the monster from within. And that's the end of the issue. Some slight spoilers for the next two issues of this story, but issue 3 synopsis, which you can view on the Wikizilla website, does seem to confirm that yes, she is likely controlling the kaiju from inside its body, and apparently she's he's not the only one, as the Wanderer seems to be protecting more of these kaiju controlling kids in the future, though before that he will apparently get abducted by a group of cultists worshipping Godzilla, and that will be the main subject of issue 2, which will be out in September and possibly even at the time you're watching this video. While I'm not entirely certain of when this story takes place relative to the main Godzilla comic, I assume they're relatively around the same time. Or at the very least, Jason, the main character of the Godzilla story, hasn't made good on his promise yet to kill Godzilla. While I know that the majority of Godzilla's appearances are probably going to be in the main series, I am curious if he'll actually have any kind of appearance in this series as well. I'm also curious how strong the Wanderer is relative to Jason, who was able to briefly physically stand up to Godzilla as well as tank a tail swipe from Godzilla. Though I'm guessing based on his reaction to getting caught in the middle between these two larger kaiju, who, let's be honest, probably aren't as big as Godzilla himself, he's probably only adept at handling the small fry kaiju, which I guess is still better than what most people can handle. The writers have hinted that they would make some sort of crossover story between these 3 series, so we'll see if he ever gets to test his mettle against whatever the characters in the main series is facing off against. But until next time, folks, take care.